Pre-season, the stage was already buzzing. By the time teams started getting ready for training camp, the draft had already sent a bunch of top prospects to their new homes: Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota, D'Angelo Russell landing in Los Angeles, and Porzingis heading into the New York pressure cooker. But the draft wasn't just about top picks. Teams were flipping players and rights, like they were dealing cards at a casino. Luke Ridnour, for example, got passed around so fast he might have needed a GPS just to keep up with where he technically played. By the time the summer moved past the draft, trades were popping up across the league. Houston got Ty Lawson from Denver, stacking up guards like they were bracing for some kind of perimeter shortage. Boston pulled in David Lee, and Dallas grabbed Zaza from Milwaukee, who seemed to be cleaning out every drawer in the house. Detroit got Marcus Morris and a couple others from Phoenix, in what looked like a move to just lighten the load out west. But let's not pretend anything that summer came close to the chaos of the DeAndre Jordan saga. Jordan had verbally agreed to head to Dallas. It seemed like a done deal. 4 years, $80 million. Dallas started rearranging their whole roster, expecting him to anchor their defense and gobble up rebounds. Then, out of nowhere, everything flipped. The Clippers pulled off a last-minute scramble that felt more like a reality show than an NBA negotiation. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Doc Rivers, and the whole crew flew out to Houston to keep Jordan from signing with Dallas. They holed up in his house until the official signing window opened. No one was getting in. Dallas folks were locked out, literally and metaphorically. The entire thing played out live online. Chandler Parsons tweeted a plain emoji. Clippers players fired back with cars and padlocks. Griffin even posted a picture of a chair propped under a doorknob. Meanwhile, Dallas was left on the outside, looking in, while Jordan ended up re-signing with the Clippers for about $87 million. The aftermath: heated interviews, social media fireworks, and Mark Cuban reportedly cruising around Houston trying to find Jordan's house. Cuban denied that, but the damage was done. Parsons called Jordan unprofessional, and Dallas was left scrambling to rework their plan without a franchise center. All that chaos only made the rest of the offseason look even more businesslike in comparison. Teams were still working to reshuffle and retool. San Antonio re-signed Tim Duncan and pulled in LaMarcus Aldridge with a 4-year, $80 million deal. It wasn't a huge surprise, but it signaled the Spurs were still going all in while Duncan was around. Golden State kept Draymond Green locked in with a multi-year deal. They weren't blowing things up, just reloading. The Clippers added some pieces too, including Paul Pierce and Josh Smith. Dallas, licking its wounds from the Jordan mess, brought in D. Will and tried to make something out of the Zaza trade. Plenty of other teams got in on the free agency carousel. The Lakers made a rare move and signed Roy Hibbert. Sacramento stocked up with Rajon Rondo, Marco Bellinelli, and Costa Koufos. Miami added Stat and Gerald Green, while also keeping D. Wade and Goran Dragic. Toronto added Carroll Bismack and Corey Joseph to boost their depth. Indiana brought in Monte Ellis and Jordan Hill, trying to build some new chemistry around Paul George. Even Boston stayed active, re-signing Jay Crowder and bringing in Amir Johnson, David Lee, and a handful of others. But despite all the signings, one thing stood out. This offseason wasn't packed with superstar moves. It was more about maintaining continuity, adjusting on the margins, and avoiding financial disasters. Restricted free agents like Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler stayed put. San Antonio's move for Aldridge, though, was seen as one of the biggest deals, not just because of the talent, but because it sent a clear message. They were still hunting for a title. Aldridge gave them another option next to Duncan, and the combo of experience and firepower had people paying attention. Meanwhile, Steve Kerr's back issues meant Golden State had to make an early adjustment. Luke Walton stepped in as interim head coach during training camp. Not exactly the smoothest start for the defending champs, but the structure was already in place. Other teams were shuffling coaching staffs, exploring their options. Denver was deep in their search, with names like Mike D'Antoni and Alvin Gentry floating around. It wasn't just about rosters. It was about who would be running the show from the sidelines. By late September, camps were opening up. Teams filled rosters with fringe players, undrafted guys, and vets on their last chances. Minnesota made some early noise with hints at rotation changes. Golden State had to adjust without Kerr. Every team had a storyline brewing. Even the leftover effects of the previous trade deadline were still hanging over the league. 37 players moved back in February, with a mess of draft picks included. That wild flurry of activity only added more pressure for teams to make the right summer moves. And then there were all those minor trades and roster tweaks. Zoran Dragic went to Boston, Ray McCallum headed to San Antonio, and Milwaukee quietly offloaded Jared Dudley. These weren't headliners, but they all added up. Teams were fine-tuning, shedding contracts, creating space, and stockpiling assets. The bigger picture? A league in transition. Some teams were building from the ground up with rookies like Towns and Porzingis. Others were tweaking, trying to hold on to windows that were slowly closing. There wasn't a massive shift in star power, but there was a sense that everything was being positioned for something bigger down the road. No team wanted to be the one that missed their moment, and the ones that did, well, they'd be hearing about it all year long. Because in the NBA, the preseason isn't a warm-up, it's the opening move. And in 2015, the board got flipped before the first game even started. Regular season. The league turned 70 and decided to throw itself a record-breaking party. Golden State went on a tear that ended in 73 wins and just 9 losses, making that the best regular season record in NBA history. They made over 1,000 three-pointers, led the league in scoring, assists, and shooting percentages, and had a point differential that made opponents question their career choices. Steph Curry turned into a video game character, dropping over 30 points per game and becoming the first player ever to hit 400 threes in one season. He didn't just win the Most Valuable Player award, he swept every vote. The league had never seen a unanimous MVP until Curry casually dropped that into the mix while averaging over 2 steals and nearly 91% from the free throw line. Meanwhile, Kobe Bryant announced he was calling it a career, and suddenly, every road game turned into a farewell tour. Every arena gave him a tribute, jerseys, montages, you name it. He played in 66 games and averaged over 17 points per night. But the real show was his final game, 60 points against Utah, a full-blown curtain call in front of a roaring crowd. On the opposite end of the Magic, the Philadelphia 76ers managed to set a different kind of record. They started the season with 17 straight losses and broke the single-season losing streak record by hitting 28 straight. They finally got a win on December 1st, just barely beating the Lakers, who were also experiencing their own brand of basketball despair. The Eastern Conference actually had 8 playoff teams finish above 500 for the first time in a decade. Meanwhile, the Lakers finished 17-65, which was their worst season ever. Dirk Nowitzki reached his 10,000th field goal on November 30th, becoming the 13th player to ever do that. Kevin Garnett passed Jason Kidd for 3rd most games played and added a couple more milestones to the resume, 26,000 career points and the all-time lead in defensive rebounds. Paul Gasol played his 1,000th game. December turned into an achievement checklist. Rajon Rondo got his 5,000th assist. Paul Pierce passed 26,000 points. And Dirk flew past Shaq to become the 6th highest scorer in league history. Dwight Howard reached 15,000 points. And LeBron James kept climbing the all-time scoring list, passing Alex English by the end of the year. Then came the trade deadline. It wasn't as wild as some years, but 18 teams got involved and 24 players were moved. Lance and a future pick were sent to Memphis, with Jeff Green heading to the Clippers. Markieff Morris went to Washington and the Suns got back Chris Humphries, DeJuan Blair, and a first-round pick. Joel Anthony was dumped on the 76ers in a deal that barely registered for anyone outside of salary cap trackers. Brian Roberts was traded twice on the same day, becoming the human equivalent of a conference call no one wanted to join. A lot of the trades involved role players, depth shuffles, or tax relief. Nothing seismic, but enough to shift playoff rotations around the edges. Stat leaders painted a clear picture of who ran the show. Curry led the league in points per game and efficiency. Drummond pulled down almost 15 rebounds per game for Detroit. And Rondo dished nearly 12 assists per game in Sacramento. Whiteside was blocking shots like his life depended on it, averaging almost 4 per game. Redick led the league in three-point percentage, and DeAndre Jordan somehow made over 70% of his shots, while shooting mostly from inside the restricted area. James Harden led the league in minutes and turnovers, setting the single-season turnover record with 374. Yes, he broke the record, then kept going, like it was a personal challenge. The Warriors roster, already stacked, benefited from team chemistry that had been building for years. The ball zipped around, shooters found space, and the defense wasn't just decent. It held teams under 100 points on most nights, while the offense buried them in threes. All the headlines and highlight reels made it easy to forget just how deep the league was. San Antonio quietly won 67 games behind a smothering defense and Kawhi Leonard's steady rise. Cleveland kept its grip on the East, cruising toward a top seed, even while juggling injuries and mid-season lineup tweaks. Even in the middle of the standings, teams were jockeying hard for position. The Raptors leaned on Kyle Lowry and DeMar, while Boston's scrappy depth kept them competitive. Miami found a groove with a mix of veterans like D. Wade and younger talent, while Charlotte surprised people by sneaking into the mix. Houston and Chicago both underwhelmed relative to expectations, barely scraping into the playoffs. New Orleans was a mess of injuries, and Sacramento's drama never took a vacation. Some teams were clearly building, others treading water, and a few were already thinking about the lottery before the All-Star break. By January, it was clear the season was shaping up as a race to catch Golden State, which, spoiler alert, nobody did. The Warriors opened the season with 24 straight wins, setting a new record for best start in NBA history. It took Milwaukee to finally hand them their first loss. Media buzz was constant. Could they reach 72? Could they go 82-0? The conversation shifted every week as they kept climbing. Every loss made headline. Every win just felt inevitable. And as they kept climbing, the pressure started building. While all that noise was happening, Portland quietly put together a solid year, led by Damian Lillard, who didn't make the All-Star game, but definitely let everyone know about it. Utah made a late push, and Phoenix just kind of unraveled. Brooklyn and the Lakers were in free fall. By the time April rolled around, the playoff picture was mostly set. Some final jockeying for seeds happened, but the biggest story was still the Warriors closing in on win number 73. On April 13th, they got it, and the regular season ended with history made. All that remained was the question: could the team with the greatest regular season ever back it up in the playoffs? That answer would have to wait. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, awards. Steph Curry didn't just win Most Valuable Player, he broke the voting system. Every single first place vote went to him. 131 voters, 131 times his name was on top. That made him the first unanimous MVP in league history. His stats were ridiculous. 30 points per game, over 6 assists, 5 rebounds, over 2 steals, shooting over 50% from the field, nearly 46% from deep, and over 90% from the line. He led the league in several advanced stats too, including nearly 18 win shares and over 31 in player efficiency. No one else came close. Second in the MVP vote was Kawhi Leonard, who had 634 points. LeBron James followed right behind at 631. That tells you how far ahead Curry was. He scored the maximum possible and left everyone else scrambling for runner-up. Speaking of Kawhi, he didn't leave the year empty-handed. He walked off with Defensive Player of the Year. He got 84 first-place votes and 547 total points, giving him a comfortable lead over Draymond Green, who finished second with 44 first-place votes and 421 points. Kawhi was everywhere on defense. He averaged nearly 2 steals and 1 block a game, while also putting up over 21 points. He shot over 50% from the field and hit nearly 44% from 3. He played over 33 minutes a night and anchored one of the top defensive units in the league. His win shares topped 13, and his impact was felt on both ends of the court. Rookie of the Year went to Karl Anthony Towns, and honestly, it wasn't close. He played in all 82 games and averaged over 18 points, 10 rebounds, and nearly 2 blocks per game. His shooting splits were impressive for a first-year center: 54% from the field, over 34% from 3, and 81% from the free throw line. Porzingis made things interesting early in the season, but Towns never slowed down. Porzingis came in second with a voting share of about 56%, while Towns ran away with the rest. Nikola Jokic finished third, giving the rookie class some serious long-term potential. Jamal Crawford took home 6th Man of the Year. He didn't start, but he finished plays. He averaged over 14 points per game off the bench, shot 40% from the field, and hit over 90% of his free throws. He pulled in 51 first-place votes and 341 total points. Iggy was close behind with 33 first-place votes, but couldn't quite catch up. McCollum was named Most Improved Player, and that wasn't a surprise to anyone paying attention. He made a huge leap, jumping from under 7 points per game the previous season to nearly 21. He added over 4 assists and 3 rebounds per game, while shooting over 41% from 3 and nearly 45% overall. He led the voting with 101 first-place votes and 559 total points, giving him a dominant share near 86%. Coach of the Year went to Steve Kerr. The guy missed part of the season due to health issues, but still guided Golden State to 73 wins. He became the 3rd Warriors coach to ever win the award, joining Alex Hannum and Don Nelson. All NBA first team included Curry, Westbrook, LeBron, Kawhi, and DeAndre Jordan. Curry's spot was unanimous. Westbrook and LeBron were near locks, And Kawhi had both offensive and defensive credentials. Jordan's selection got people talking. His defense and rebounding were elite, but some questioned his place over other scoring bigs. Second team featured Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins. Third team had Kyle Lowry, Klay Thompson, Paul George, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Drummond. The depth of talent across all three teams was clear, and plenty of those guys could have made a case for higher placement. The all-defensive first team included Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Avery Bradley, Draymond Green, and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi and Green were no-brainers. Bradley's perimeter defense got him there, and Jordan's rim protection helped secure his spot. Chris Paul's defensive IQ and consistency rounded it out. Second team included Whiteside, Tony Allen, Jimmy Butler, Paul Millsap, and Paul George. Whiteside was leading the league in blocks. Allen was still a menace, and Butler and George handled the toughest assignments night after night. The all-rookie first team was loaded. Towns, Porzingis, Jokic, Okafor, and Devin Booker made the cut. That group ended up defining future seasons for their teams. Second team had Moutier, D'Angelo Russell, Winslow, Turner, and Cauley Stein. Those picks reflected both production and potential. Executive of the Year went to R.C. Buford in San Antonio. His front office moves and long-term vision paid off with another elite regular season run. Mike Conley won the Sportsmanship Award, proving you can be competitive without throwing elbows. Wayne Ellington received the Citizenship Award, recognizing his off-court efforts. Vince Carter was named Teammate of the Year, because of course he was. 20 seasons deep and still making locker rooms better. Some of the award margins were especially interesting. Curry's unanimous MVP was a league first. Not one voter gave anyone else the top spot. Kawhi's win over Green in defensive player voting wasn't razor thin, but it wasn't a landslide either. He had just 40 more first place votes. McCollum's most improved numbers were dominant, and no one else was within reach. DeAndre Jordan's spot on the All-NBA first team was a lightning rod. Some fans and analysts questioned whether he deserved it over Cousins or even Drummond. His defense and rebounding were his main selling points, and he was on a team that won a lot of games. For sixth man, Crawford's scoring off the bench got the headline, but Iggy's all-around game nearly pulled off the upset. Voters clearly had to decide between flashy scoring and do-everything versatility. The all-rookie selections showed how deep the class was. Towns and Jokic both ended up becoming franchise cornerstones. Booker was already showing signs he could be elite, and Porzingis had New York buzzing. The year was packed with standout performances, but it also reminded everyone that the award races can be more than just stat sheets. They're about narrative, momentum, team success, and the eye test. For most categories, the choices were pretty clear, but a few definitely sparked debate. Bottom line, the awards for 2015 to 2016 gave us a clear snapshot of who ruled the league, who was rising, and who still had more to prove. Every ballot told a story, and the voters didn't hold back. Season highs. Kobe Bryant delivered the highest scoring performance of the entire season in his final game ever, April 13th, 2016, against Utah. 42 minutes, 60 points. Just saying it out loud sounds like something pulled from a movie script. He also added 4 rebounds and 4 assists. That game wasn't just a farewell, it was an explosion. No player scored more in a single game that season, and nobody came close in terms of theatrics. But if you're looking for dominance in the paint, Drummond stole that show. On November 3rd, 2015, against Indiana, he pulled down 29 rebounds. That's the highest single game rebound total of the year. Not 20, not 25, 29. He added 25 points and played 43 minutes. It was a full court takeover. Rajon Rondo owned the passing lanes all season, but he peaked twice. He had not one, but 2 20-assist games. First, on November 23rd, and then again on January 25th. Both games were with Sacramento, and in the January one against Charlotte, he tossed those 20 dimes while adding 10 rebounds and 7 points in 42 minutes. That's a triple-double missing the points. Steals had no single ruler. Instead, 4 players, tied at the top with 8 apiece. James Harden did it on March 23rd against Utah. Pablo Prigioni got his 8 on January 13th when Houston faced Miami. Ricky Rubio swiped his 8 against the Knicks on December 16th. Whiteside made sure no one got anything easy at the rim. He logged 11 blocks in a single game on January 15th against Denver. That wasn't just a random performance. He also scored 19 points and pulled down 17 rebounds. In 38 minutes, he was the tallest wall in the league. 11 blocks? That's a stat line most bigs would dream about in a week. Now let's talk about threes. Steph Curry put on a show on February 27th against Oklahoma City. That night, he made 12 three-pointers, tying the record at the time for most in a game. He ended with 46 points and didn't just win the game, he shattered the Thunder's morale. That was also the night he broke his own single-season record for threes and passed Kyle Korver for the most consecutive games with a three made. That number was 128 at the time. That game wasn't just record-setting, it was Curry at his most dangerous. One of those 12 threes came from nearly 40 feet out in overtime to win the game. That shot alone could have been its own headline. While Kobe had the 60-point explosion, Anthony Davis wasn't far behind. On February 21st against Detroit, Davis scored 59 points and grabbed 20 rebounds. That's the only 50-plus, 20-rebound game of the season. That game actually came just 2 days before Curry's 12-3 night. So yes, late February had some of the most ridiculous performances all year. To add some extra perspective, Drummond's 29-rebound game was 4 more than the next best. Rebounding numbers like that just don't happen anymore in a modern pace and space league. His line that night was straight out of the 90s. Whiteside's 11-block night stood out not just for the total, but because it wasn't padded. He also added 19 and 17, creating a near triple-double with blocks instead of assists. There was only one other double-digit block performance that season, and Whiteside had that too. Rondo's 20-assist games weren't just flashy. They came at a time when the Kings were experimenting with a fast-paced offense and letting him orchestrate every possession. In both of those games, he had over 40 minutes played and kept the ball moving non-stop. It's rare to hit 20 once, and he did it twice. James Harden's 8-steal game was the only time he led the league in that category. The rest of the season, he was more known for his offense, but that night, he turned into a ball-hawking menace. It's worth noting that despite the 8 steals, he still led the league in turnovers for the season. That night, though, he flipped the script. Pablo Prigioni, on the other hand, wasn't known for gaudy stat lines, but he found a rhythm against Miami and just picked them apart on defense. He only played 16 minutes in that game. 8 steals in 16 minutes is absurd. That ratio doesn't even look real. Curry's 12 threes weren't a fluke either. He had multiple games that season with double-digit three-pointers made. And the way he was shooting, it wasn't just the volume, it was the range, the timing, and the confidence. That game against the Thunder was one of the most iconic games of his career. Bookending the season, Kobe's 60 came in the final game of the entire regular season. That same night, the Warriors locked up their 73rd win. So April 13th wasn't just about one final moment, it was a night that capped off a season full of single-game absurdity. There were other wild games. Klay Thompson had a 45-point night. Jimmy Butler scored 53 in a comeback win over Philadelphia. Damian Lillard dropped 51 on Golden State and did it with swagger. But none of those quite reached the top of the leaderboard. Even with all that firepower, Curry's 12 threes and Kobe's 60 remain the gold standards. They were moments that grabbed the attention of casual fans, stat nerds, and historians all at once. When you break down these season highs, you're not just looking at numbers, you're looking at performances that defined careers, shattered records, and sometimes broke the internet. These were the games everyone talked about the next morning. Every stat line had its own story. Drummond controlled the glass. Rondo dropped dimes like it was 2011 again. Whiteside turned into a shot blocking machine. Harden and Rubio turned into pickpocket specialists. And Kobe, he didn't just go out with a bang. He made sure no one else could touch that scoring mark all year. And for one final night, he owned the league one more time. Playoffs. The 2016 NBA playoffs ran from April 16th to June 19th with 16 teams battling for the title. Cleveland ended up winning the championship in historic fashion, taking down Golden State in 7 games. It was the franchise's first title and the first time any team came back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. LeBron James was named Finals MVP, and the postseason was loaded with chaos, comebacks, suspensions, and records. In the first round, Cleveland swept Detroit 4-0. Kyrie averaged nearly 28 points. Kevin Love pulled down around 12 rebounds a game, and LeBron did everything else. The sweep ended with Game 4 being the final playoff game ever played at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Toronto and Indiana went to 7 games, with the Raptors finally getting their first Game 7 win. Charlotte and Miami also went to 7, with Miami taking Atlanta beat Boston in 6 games. In the West, Golden State handled Houston in 5, setting a record for most threes in a game with 21. Portland took out the Clippers in 6, and the Thunder knocked off the Spurs in 6 as well, despite San Antonio's 67-win regular season. In the second round, Cleveland stayed perfect, sweeping Atlanta with another barrage of 3. In Game 2, they hit 25 from deep, 18 in the first half alone. Toronto and Miami went another full 7 games, and Toronto reached the conference finals for the first time ever. Golden State faced Portland in the second round and closed it out in 5. Steph Curry returned from injury in Game 4 and dropped 17 in overtime to seal it. Oklahoma City beat San Antonio again, which had shocked many after the Spurs dominated Game 1 with a 30-point win. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Cleveland jumped out 2-0 lead against Toronto with dominant home win. The Raptors responded with 2 impressive wins in Toronto, tying the series. But Cleveland closed the door, winning Game 5 by 38 and Game 6 by 26. LeBron had 33 in the clincher, while Love added 20 points and 12 rebounds. In the West, the conference finals between Golden State and Oklahoma City turned into a classic. The Thunder took Game 1 in Oakland, then Golden State responded with a blowout in Game 2. Oklahoma City then crushed the Warriors in Games 3 and 4, putting the defending champs on the brink. Golden State won Game 5, at home behind Curry's 31 points. Game 6 became legendary. Klay Thompson hit 11 three-pointers and finished with 41 points, setting a new playoff record for threes made in a game. The Warriors came back to win by 7. In Game 7, Curry led the way with 36, and the Warriors used a 29-12 third quarter to flip the game. That comeback made them the 10th team in history to rally from down 3-1 in a series. It was also the first Western Conference Finals to go the distance since 2002. That Game 7 was also the last time Kevin Durant played for the Thunder. The finals started in Oakland. Golden State took Game 1 by 15, winning the bench battle 45-10. Game 2 was a 21-point blowout, with the Warriors up by 48 combined over the first 2 games. Cleveland came back with a 30-point win in Game 3, but dropped Game 4 at home, putting the series at 3-1. That's when it flipped. Draymond Green was suspended for Game 5 after picking up his 4th flagrant foul point in Game 4. Without him, Cleveland stormed Oracle Arena and won by 15. LeBron and Kyrie both scored 41 points. The first time 2 teammates ever scored 40 or more in the same finals game. Game 6 in Cleveland saw more drama. Curry fouled out and threw his mouthpiece into the stands, getting ejected. LeBron had 41 again, and the Cavaliers forced Game 7s with a 14-point win. Game 7 became one of the most famous games in NBA history. With the score tied at 89, late in the 4th, LeBron chased down Iggy and blocked his layup attempt off the backboard. Then Kyrie drilled a 3 over Curry to give Cleveland the lead for good. LeBron was fouled on a dunk attempt shortly after and made 1 free throw to seal it. Golden State's final shot was a Curry 3 defended by Kevin Love, which missed. Cleveland won 93-89 and took home the championship. They became the first team to win a Finals Game 7 on the road since 1978. LeBron was the clear Finals MVP. He averaged nearly 30 points, over 11 rebounds, nearly 9 assists, and over 2 blocks and 2 steals per game. He became the first player ever to lead all players in a final series in all 5 major categories. The Warriors finished the season with 73 wins, but it wasn't enough. They became the first team to win over 70 games and not take the title. They also became the first to lose a 3-1 lead in the finals. Cleveland went 16-5 in the playoffs. They swept the first 2 rounds, beat Toronto in 6, and then took down Golden State in 7. Toronto finished with 10 playoff wins, their most ever in a single postseason. Golden State had already gone 7 games with the Thunder and came into the finals with tired legs. Draymond's suspension and Bogut's injury hurt their front court, and Curry's knee wasn't at full strength after the earlier rounds. The playoff run also elevated several players. Kyrie's clutch performance, Klay's explosion in Game 6 of the Western Finals, and Durant's strong showing, despite the collapse, added layers to the offseason. Shortly after the finals, Durant signed with the Warriors. Cleveland's title validated their mid-season coaching change. They had fired David Blatt and promoted Tyronn Lue, who helped build better chemistry and a more focused postseason attack. The playoffs were full of oddities, like Cleveland hitting a playoff record 25 threes in a game, Curry setting multiple shooting records, and Klay breaking the 3-point mark. The turning point of the finals remains Draymond's suspension. The Warriors had a 3-1 lead before losing 3 straight games. It was the first time all year they lost 3 in a row. From April to June, the story shifted over and over. There were comebacks, ejections, records, and one of the greatest Game 7s ever played. The 2016 playoffs didn't just crown a champion, they rewrote history. Offseason, Kevin Durant leaving Oklahoma City and signing with Golden State hit the league like a meteor. He signed a 2-year deal worth a little over $54 million with a player option on the second year. To make room, the Warriors dumped Andrew Bogut's salary, flipping him to Dallas, along with a future pick. Then came a chain reaction. Golden State brought in Zaza, David West, and re-signed Ian Clark. Just like that, they reloaded around Curry, Thompson, Green, and Iggy with one of the most top-heavy rosters the league had seen. teams across the league scrambled. The cap spike, jumping from around $70 million to over $94 million, flooded front offices with spending power. What followed was a spending spree that felt more like a game show than strategy. Detroit backed up the armored truck for Drummond with a 5-year deal worth around $130 million. They didn't stop there, tossing out deals to John Lawyer, Ish Smith, and Boban. Meanwhile, Boston scored Al Horford on a 4-year contract worth roughly $113 million, one of the biggest gets of the summer. Toronto made sure DeMar stayed in town, locking him up on a 5-year deal, close to $139 million. Charlotte threw nearly $120 million at Nicholas Batum, while the Lakers handed Jordan Clarkson $50 million over 4 years. And speaking of Los Angeles, the Lakers also gave Timofey Mozgov a 4-year deal worth around $64 million, a move that quickly aged like unrefrigerated milk. Miami secured Whiteside with a contract worth nearly $98 million over 4 years, but also handed Luol Deng a 4-year, $72 million deal. That one raised some eyebrows, even before training camp. Atlanta picked up Dwight Howard for a 3-year deal close to $70 million, trying to recapture some interior dominance. They also kept Kent Bazemore in the fold on a $70 million contract over 4 years. Memphis went full in on Mike Conley, giving him the biggest deal in league history at the time, 5 years, around $153 million. He became the highest paid player without ever making an all-star team, which felt like a trivia answer waiting to happen. Meanwhile, other teams filled out with more mid-level names. Jeremy Lin joined Brooklyn, and Bismack went to Orlando. There were trades too, though not as headline-grabbing as the Durant move. The 3-team trade involving Jeff Teague reshaped a few rosters. Teague went to Indiana, George Hill landed in Utah, and Atlanta grabbed the number 12 pick in the draft. That deal helped the Hawks clear space for Horford and Bazemore. Teague had been playing through a knee injury during the previous season, so Indiana was betting on a bounce back. Indiana also brought in Al Jefferson and Aaron Brooks to round out the bench. They lost Ian Mahinmi and Solomon Hill in the process, which wasn't nothing, but they hoped the new additions would make up for it. Utah, meanwhile, picked up George Hill to add experience and control to their backcourt. Golden State's reshuffling didn't stop at Durant. The Bogut deal, while essential for cap reasons, cost them a key defender. But the additions of David West and Zaza gave them cheaper veteran presence. The roster was getting top-heavy, but not without flexibility. A few small moves, like re-signing Clark and snagging bench pieces, helped balance it out. Detroit got louder too. After re-signing Drummond, they added size and depth by bringing in Bairstow and Jody Meeks through trades. It was clear they weren't content to sit still. Their front office went full Home Depot and bought every tool on the shelf. Around the league, smaller trades kept the wire buzzing. Teams shuffled expiring contracts, moved second-round picks, and handed out cash like confetti. Most of it was about clearing space or plugging holes, not seismic shifts. But even those minor moves added up in a summer when every team was chasing relevance. The cap jump didn't just shake things up, it turned regular free agency into a turbocharged frenzy. A lot of those contracts ended up being questionable. Overpaying for role players, aging veterans, or inconsistent production became the rule, not the exception. Teams with flexibility felt pressure to spend, and once Durant joined Golden State, the rest of the league seemed to panic. Oklahoma City was left picking up the pieces. Losing their franchise player forced them to pivot, putting everything on Russell Westbrook's shoulders. Golden State became the villain overnight, stacked with stars and running on all cylinders. Everyone else had to decide: chase stars, build slow, or throw money and hope it sticks. The offseason didn't just change rosters, it altered trajectories. Some of those deals became anchor contracts, others vanished quietly. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.